Well, look, let's set the scene a little bit for Charlottesville, and I'm curious what you think about this, because the election of Trump, last November, and with everything that happened during that campaign and kind of how he positioned himself in his manner and style of campaigning, I think is interesting and important as a prelude to Charlottesville. Some say he's a racist, he's a Nazi. Some say he's just speaking out against political correctness.
Right.
Depending on where you're coming from. He's just being real. He's just telling what's on his mind, whatever it is, in a tweet or a speech. But it's interesting that he is the one, given the way he speaks and the way his words in tweets and speeches and all have become touch points of controversy, and that being part of what sets the climate, in this time period leading up to Charlottesville.
Right.
I mean, how do you see that? On the one hand, it seems like we have, a greater focus and commitment to having laws protecting against hate crimes.
Right.
But hate speech or hateful speech is, where does that fit in, within the scope of hate crimes and in the climate of Trump?
Yeah, it's challenging. It's a time that I feel like I've ever really experienced before. But even hateful speech is in and of itself protected.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something to be said, and many people sincerely believe this, that the way to counteract that hateful speech is to hear it.
Yeah.
Right? Rather than have it hidden somewhere that we don't get to hear it, or we don't get to know who's expressing it, right? And when you're able to hear it, it arms you with the ability to respond however you want to respond. You can dismiss it as silly or frivolous. You can decide to have a conversation with your loved ones or your friends and family because it's an interesting thing to think about. Or you can take to the streets, right?
You counter it.
You can certainly try to counter it with the counter protest or some other way. So even hateful speech is protected by the First Amendment, and as I said, there's value in hearing it because it empowers you to respond however you want to respond.
You could even argue that by trying to stifle it or stamp it out, you give it energy.
You do.
And more energy than it would otherwise have.
Right. And consider if, a local municipality says, I don't like what you have to say, so I'm not going to allow you to say it.
Right.
You can make that person a martyr, right? And even more people would be paying attention, but they otherwise might ignore it because of that now conflict between what the municipality does and the perspective that it is silencing hateful speech, but speech that at least some people want to hear. And I think it makes them more of a martyr and more popular, more attention at least paid them than they otherwise might have gotten. So it's a slippery slope, and it's treading uncertain terrain in these circumstances.